start again.
Well, let's start from the start. Let's go. Are we recording? No, seriously, are we recording? I'm hungry. I'm hungry. I want to go read a newspaper and eat some eggs.
We are going to start.
We are live. I think we are, but we're also on. What?
I went to the wrong camera.
Oh boy.
One more time. Here we go. One more time. All right.
We are live for the third time today, but we are also on tape. We are deep down in the bowels of Lease Music. Chris Foulds, Magic Mike Miltimore, Bonnie. Now, it's episode 34. Okay, we show up today, and there's a massive turd.
A shitty start to the day at Lee's Music. There's a big human defecation outside Lee's Music. An impressive looking load on the ground. And it portends what today is because we just did probably a half an hour show, and Lee then tells us, Mike just tells us here at Lee's that it wasn't taping. So we have to redo the thing now. We have to redo it pretending we never did it. It's like being a jury saying just disregard the evidence, even though we just did the show.
We joked about how it was going to be a bad show, and it's been, it hasn't been a bad show, but we got to do it again.
You've got to do it again because it wasn't taping.
It was more like practice, and I think this is going to be a really good version of it.
Yeah, and it's not going to be a shitty show today. We have a great bunch of guests on here. Let's start. Russ Valley Restores, Mike Hall, Connor Hall, hit TV show on History Channel. They're on the show today. Local.
Yeah.
Kamloops Curling Center. Lots of talk going on about a new facility. Is it the end of venerable Kamloops Curling Club? We're going to talk about that. I'll share my opinion on that. Barriere Mayor Ward Stamer.
From Mexico.
Yes, from Mexico. He joined us, or you talked about him on the show last week.
Last week, yes.
You'll join us this week, and you'll deal with the impending departure of Mayor Ken Christian. Obviously, you don't care that it's Pink Shirt Day. You're hungover. You thought it's July.
Last night I was at the Fox and Hounds, Al Deacon's place, and there was a dueling pianos, Jeremy Kneshaw. We interviewed him on the
Jeremy
show.
Kneshaw.
Yes, he was there with a guy, I think, Matot. Yes, and they were doing a wonderful dueling pianos, and I joined some friends, and my wife came after her work, and we had a few pints and listened to that, and then I went home and I had some wine and listened to Randy Travis and George Jones. 54-minute thing on YouTube is unbelievable. I didn't get to bed till 2 in the morning. Here's
another guy with no backbone. Be a man. Be a man and call him back. That's what you said last week to Ward Stamer. What happened there?
Well, he called me back on the Wednesday after he saw the show, or someone told him about the show, and so we had a good, probably a 20-minute conversation. He's in Puerto Vallarta. I'm in Kamloops working as usual, and we had a long talk last week, a week ago today, about my calling him out about. He had sent to reporter Jessica Wallace a text on the Saturday night before the Super Bowl. He was upset about an article, like something I edited out of his comments. He thought he was misquoted. He wasn't. He's still going to call Jessica to talk to her about that. Apologize for claiming he was misquoted. We had a good talk about all things TNRD, and we'll talk about it later on today.
I think what really happened was you just had too much McDonald's coffee, and you probably had it black. You got too fired up. Either that, and I'm not making light of the situation here. We did want to kind of diffuse the situation, but you did kind of turn in to Ric Flair. You cut a promo on Barriere Mayor Ward Stamer, so in order to try and diffuse the situation, we put this little video package together right here.
Barriere Mayor Ward Stamer.
You!
He's another guy who has no backbone.
You haven't got the guts!
He sent Jessica Wallace.
When it involves family, it gets real personal.
No, it's more than personal.
On a Saturday night.
You got family. You got a life outside this business.
A text, unprofessional text.
For what you did.
So I called him up on Super Bowl Sunday and I said, hey.
You!
I got his voicemail.
You haven't got the guts!
So I want you to call her and apologize in person like a man.
Woo!
And call me so we can talk it out.
Woo!
So it's been 4 days and he hasn't called.
Woo!
So it tells you what kind of character he has.
Woo!
Listen, I'm just waiting for Ward Stamer to call me.
Come on! Come on and get it!
Be a man.
2 guys walk in, 1 guy walks out.
Call Jessica Wallace, apologize for being wrong,
Woo!
and leave her alone on a Saturday night. That's all.
Settle down, Rick.
And we want to make sure the viewers and the listeners know that this show is not going to be about just calling people out for the sake of controversy and have them on the show. This was organic. You were going to bat for a reporter.
I was.
Things were said in the heat of the moment. Now the hope is Ward Stamer can bring back some beer for you.
Yes.
And you guys can wash down together some Strauss Heart Drops, which are 20% off right now at New Leaf Produce Market. If there is one thing, and one thing alone, that everybody knows, everybody, about New Leaf Produce Market, it always prevails. It is a juggernaut, just like its owner, Herman Hoti. And in November, yes, it was hard because the roads and some of his grade A produce, like the produce at Newfeld Farms, we couldn't get it up here. But guess what, folks? The roads are open and the shelves are stocked, jacked and stacked. There's always a rainbow on the other side when it comes to New Leaf Produce Market. Get on down here to check it out. Russ Valley Restorers, filmed just down the road in Tappan, BC.
The shoe swap.
Connor Hall, Mike Hall, the Rasta Blasta, both from Kamloops. That's Avery Schoaf, who looks like
Ron Jeremy. Spitting image of Ron Jeremy, although his legal situation is probably much better.
He lives in Kamloops right now. This Mike here grew up in Brocklehurst, graduated from NorCam.
Saw him last summer. We were doing the return of the Hot Night in the City. We had a newspaper booth down there. I was manning it, as usual. And
probably drinking there too.
Mike walks by, and he is like a celebrity, as you know, because he got that look. Everyone knows him from the show. And when he walked down the street looking at the cars, there was a crowd of people around him. It was impressive.
I happen to know his brother, Kevin Hall, also known as Shrek at the Kamloops Rugby Club, where you can find him often wearing a kilt, more tie-ins. Actually, so my full disclosure, my good buddy, Tyson Hepburn, is one of the creators of this show. Him and his buddy, Matt Shuchuk, executive producers on the show, they put it together. And 4 years later, they have a hit show. Season 4 premieres Thursday, 9 p.m. on History Channel. Kamloops businesses featured. James West at Dubs Customs, the metalwork king over there, who I also...
We've done stories.
Yeah, I actually pissed him off because I was trying to just give people an idea. Do you know that building that has, and I said, the plastic spider on top? Yeah. This is a metalwork guy. He's like, you're an idiot. I'm a metalwork guy. It's not plastic.
It's like someone calling you a broadcaster.
Well, I am? Okay, that's a hungover joke right there. Mike didn't even laugh. Okay, also featured Dustin Thomas of Valley View Auto Care, and one of the storylines, does Connor right here marry his significant other Jada on the show? Let's find out.
It was a busy year, we'll put it that way. There was not a whole lot of time to plan a wedding and make everything line up right, but everything worked out. I can't give out too many details, but it was a good day out at Russ Bros, we'll put it that way.
I've asked Mike this question before. How has your life kind of changed since the start of the show as far as being recognized? I know I've seen you at the Planet Fitness a couple of times myself a while back, but how often do you get recognized, and how has your life changed?
For me, honestly, it's not that bad. I kind of blend into the background more so than, obviously, my dad and Avery. They stick out like sore thumbs that have been whacked with hammers. And it's I get lots of sideways glances and lots of people that look at me, and I'll sit there and talk with someone or meet somebody out snowmobiling or hanging out, and they'll look at me for half an hour before they finally say, I know you from somewhere. Where do I know you from? And I'll say, well, have you ever watched Russ Valley Restorers? And then it all clicks, and they're like, oh, hey, that's where I know you from.
Hey, Mike, I guess it's no secret the cars were sold there in October. How are you doing with that?
Well, I mean, normally that auction would have happened when I was dead. You know what I mean? Normally, that's all that stuff. You die, and then everybody comes, and we went and added it up, and I had almost 600 cars. Some of them I hadn't done anything within 40 years. I just turned 65. I'm getting my first old age pension check, and it's time to just clear up my life a bit. I mean, nobody wants to have to deal with my 40-year, 50-year car addiction. I figured the least I could do for my family was try and clean up some of the mess while I'm still here.
Yeah, I guess the natural question is this the final season?
I could tell you the answer, but I'd have to kill you.
Fair enough.
500 cars are gone. there's still a substantive quantity left.
It's not the end of Rust Bros. We still have the shop, still have a bunch of cars sitting around, so I wouldn't be surprised if you see us again. We'll put it that way.
We've done some cool shit this year. Oops, pardon my French.
No worries.
I actually think some of these episodes are going to be some of the best that we've ever done. James's, Stubbs' truck there was an amazing thing. When you see Connor and him rat bagging around Mission Raceway, I think that's going to be some pretty cool footage. I know they made me sick. So, like the one that Avery's building, we might have to extract them with the jaws of life if we can get them in there.
Okay, good teaser. Okay, guys, thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
The big news this week is that Kamloops Mayor Ken Christian has said he will not be running in the next municipal election. Now, this was rumored for some time, but the announcement came over Family Day long weekend. His decision to put time back into his family and step away from public life. Now, it's a big announcement because he has been involved for so many years and given many years to public service. He was the chair of the school district board. He was a city councillor before he became mayor, and mayor in recent years. He was very popular at the polls. Big announcement that he will be stepping away. It also effectively marks the beginning of the election campaign cycle. It's early, but we expect that people will now start to make announcements that they're planning a run for the mayor's chair, given Ken's indication that he will step aside this fall. I mean, he's still going to be mayor until almost the end of the year, so it's still work to do, but expect to hear from others now seeking to replace Ken. Also on my plate, or on my story list, was this follow-up with TNRD board chair Ken Gillis. We got a chance to ask him about that controversial whistleblower letter and his defense that he should stay on as the board chair. He says that the board was actually aware of some of those allegations in the letter when they voted on that big severance package for the former CAO. So we asked him about that and more in this week's KTW.
Over the weekend, the Kamloops RCMP retrieved a homemade bomb, that was found in a unit at the Northbridge Hotel in North Kamloops. The hotel is currently owned by the city and being managed on their behalf by the Ask Wellness Society, which has now evicted numerous tenants there as they look to address criminal activity within the hotel while they manage it here until the end of February. And then also I sat down with some staff members at the Boys and Girls Club to talk with them about an alarming trend they've seen in the number of in the increasing drug use amongst Kamloops teens. So that and more in this week's paper. Back to the studio with Marty and Chris.
McDonald's. Brandy Seacon here in Kamloops. She runs 6 in Kamloops, 1 in Merritt. She's very proud to be one of a growing number. You're one of the only female owner-operators maybe in Western Canada. What's going on with that?
I'm not one of the only, but there's not very many. So there's 1,400 restaurants across Canada. And last year there was 36 females. There's like 6 in Western Canada, 36 in all of Canada. And now there's like, I think, I'm going to say 50. They've done a pretty good job of like getting the girls in there now, but there's still not very many of us. So
is that something you take pride in?
Absolutely.
Great coffee and its sponsors.
So Ken's going to be mayor until November 1st. Officially, that's his last day. The election is going to be held on October 15th, and then from that, the new council gets sworn in after November 1st. And of course, the not-so-secret rumor is that Arjun Singh, councillor, very popular councillor, he's going to run. And
you dialogue with Arjun on Facebook sometimes.
We dialogue sometimes on Facebook with Arjun Singh. He's very, very active on social media. And there's not a criticism or a comment that he won't respect someone's view.
He respects the views.
But he is rumored to run. We called him. Jessica called him yesterday, and of course, both him and another councillor who's rumored to run, Dudy, very popular councillor. Almost scored an upset in 2011, I think, when he went against Peter Millibar out of the blue and almost beat Peter Millibar because there was no one else running. So he thought democracy needs a challenger, which is good. Anyway, both of them deferred talking about whether they're going to run, and they wanted to heap some praise on Ken Christian, which is fair enough. It's 8 months out.
Is there a betting favorite? Sorry, is there a betting favorite?
It's hard to say. If I would say Arjun Singh, if he runs and there's not a lot of serious competition, it's probably his for the taking because he's basically now a career politician, right? Arjun Singh has been he's been on council for many years. He's UBCM president. He's now on the board of the FCM, which is a Federation of Canadian Municipalities. He's really big into the whole municipal governance. I think he's probably the odds-on favorite, unless someone like Norm Daley, who was rumored to run, if he can get that sorted out. He's retired now, but let's say he runs for it. Let's say Dieter Dudy runs. It'd be a really good race. The last great race we've had in Kamloops was maybe 2000. What year was that? 2008. It was Terry Lake and Pete Backus and Al McNair. It was a really good race, and it was surprising. Lake just won a landslide, but we thought it was going to be a real tight race, right? So we need a good race. We haven't had a good race. Every time Ken Christian runs, whether it's for school board in '93, city council when he started in '11, I think when he wants, he's not finished at the top of the polls. So it's been a landslide. Yeah. It's never a contest. So it'd be good to have a really good contest.
With Norm Daley, I saw him outside the Blazers office not too long ago and asked him about the presidency of the Blazers. Don Moore's passed away. It's a vacant position. He said, "You guys won't let me retire. Leave me alone." Basically saying that he's trying to retire, but maybe this draws him back in. He's got the North Paws. He's a part owner of the North Paws.
Part owner of the baseball team. He's had a hand in bringing almost every single major event to Kamloops since I've been here.
The bid wizard.
He's the bid wizard, and I think he probably would love to try to run the city from a political point of view. But who knows what kind of personal decisions he has to make. I think it would be cool if we had Arjun versus Dieter versus Norm. That would be a pretty good run.
We will get to the politicians in the next story I write about the Kamloops Curling Centre, but for now let's discuss that in the Battle of Hastings. That right there is Aaron Pincott, one of many world-class curlers who have come out of the venerable Kamloops Curling Club, established in 1949. It's part of the city's sports fabric. People at that club, they bleed the club. They got married there, they grew up there, they got drunk there and slept there. They partied there, and they bonded and had fellowship there and have for many years. Here's the long and the short of this. I have no dog in this fight. I'm not a member at either club. I'm not friends with Barriere McCorkle. So what I'm going to do is just give you my opinion based on having talked to a lot of the key players on where I think this is going. I've talked to Barriere McCorkle of the city. I've talked to Randy Nelson and Rob Norden of the Kamloops Curling Club, Kevin Island of the Mac Isle Club, and Henry Perrell of the Kamloops Sports Council. Cut to the chase here. It's my feel that within the next 10 years, the Kamloops Curling Club will be no longer. It will be done. And what's your thoughts on that?
I agree. Probably sooner than 10 years, I think, depending on what kind of sort of recreation master plan that gets decided and voted upon. But you're right, the story, which is in today's newspaper and online at kamloopsthisweek.com, you did a long story about the future of curling. And basically, everyone agrees it's going to come down to having the two clubs merge into one club somewhere else, a new facility that can also attract bigger events. And but the big question is, where is this going to be, and what happens to the downtown rink, which is a really cool place.
Let's just rewind a little bit. Let's start with Byron. Now we can read between the lines here. He said the city's following a recreation master plan that says we're going to invest in one club, not two, in one club. He then goes on to talk about all the challenges that face the Kamloops downtown location. Commercial construction, he talks about parking, he talks about the inability to make that a tournament capital standard place to host. And then he goes on to talk about all the things. Well, first he says, do you think that the city is going to buy a new chunk of land and build on that if you do your dreaming? So that's not going to happen. There is no real estate like that really in the city or on the South Shore. He and others then go on to talk about, well, hey, the city already has flat land to build on MacArthur Island. They've got the ice plant, which is scalable. They have parking. It's made to expand. They need more ice sheets as part of this recreation master plan. And you've got Henry Perrell of the Sports Council saying personally he thinks that's the place to go. Even the Kamloops Curling Club if there was going to be anybody, these people that bleed Kamloops Curling Club, you'd think that they'd be saying, we're going to fight to keep our club. I think at the very least, they're resigned to the fact.
Yeah, they're resigned to the inevitability of this is going to happen, but I think they just want to make sure it happens properly because they know it's going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, Rob Norton, he's the one that told me all the stories. And he said, let's make it clear that he's not sold on anything right now. But he said, it's his opinion that the city has had its eye on the Kamloops Curling Club for a long time.
It's primo land, man. It's primo location for what's going on down there, right? Next door, they're building an apartment building in that parking lot behind the Thompson Hotel. You got the Hive, the block over. And this ties into Memorial Arena. I mean, the Recreation Master Plan has mentioned that they want to maybe turn that into a dryland gym.
And he points out signs like, why did the city take away our tax exempt status? Why are they investing mostly on the North Shore and not here? He says it's because he thinks the writing's on the wall. It's not because he doesn't love the club and bleed the club. He does, but he just sees the writing on the wall. Randy Nelson seems to me, well, it's his personal opinion, he said on the record, that Mac Isle is the place to go. And that's the person who's representing the Kamloops Curling Club in this conglomerate.
Well, it makes sense in that Mac Island is the tournament capital showcase. It's a sports place. It's a 100% sports place. And you had the old golf course, you got the disc golf now, you have all the baseball, all the soccer fields. And like you said, where they're probably going to expand, right behind the curling rink on the island, there used to be the MacArthur Island Youth Clubhouse there, Boys and Girls Club was there. And they tore that down, and that was going to be an indoor soccer facility. That didn't go through. And the last story we had, which is 2018, 2019, the city talked about ice, like expanding right behind there with some ice sheets. So it's a no-brainer that they want to make that almost like a TCC from the north on the North Shore from the South Shore, and it'll happen.
The first job of this curling conglomerate is to get the clubs united in what they want to do, and then they can talk about facility. Now, let's be clear about something. For all those Kamloops Curling Club people who are watching, I know that you are not all on board with this. You feel, some of you, that you've been strong-armed by the city. You just invested a bunch of money into your club. Can you even host a Scotties or a Briar on Mac Isle? Can they put enough seats in there? Isn't this about tournament capital standard? Is that so? If you can't even host a Briar or a Scotties on Mac Isle, what are you doing here? There's no real accommodation around that area. So how do you host a big event around there? You can host a provincials at your club, you will say, Kamloops Curling Club. We can already do that. Think about the history you're throwing away here. Are we sure we can't expand here? Is the parking all that bad? Do we have to amalgamate? So we will hear from Kamloops Curling Club members who are not on board. But if you listen to Randy Nelson, he says that most of them are at the very least resigned to the fact that this is going to happen.
I think the writing's on the wall. I think it just needs to be clear. I actually I curled against Rob Norton last week. First time in 7 years. We lost 8 or 9 to 1. You know you're in trouble when you haven't curled in 7 years, and when you did curl, it was a beginner league, and then when you show up, the other team's wearing uniforms. You know you're in big trouble.
Yeah.
But it was good. It was fun. It's a great vibe down there. Afterwards, you have a pilsner and with the other team. Great vibe. Great vibe. Yeah.
Let's talk about the new location then. So let's just say, hypothetically, it's going to be on Mac Isle, and this is going to be where things get even trickier. Randy Nelson, they haven't decided on anything, but he proposes an idea where they build a new structure on Mac Isle that has 2 ice sheets in it. One of those ice rinks becomes the 10 or 12 sheet home of the Kamloops Curling Club. The city hands the keys to the club. That's the number one sticking point for them, is we want a club that's our club.
You can run the
that's
beverage.
Run by curlers. We run the food and beverage. Yep. How are the politicians going to feel about that when it goes to council? I don't know. What their feel is, generally Kevin Island has said this, is that the city has already made up its mind. What they want to do is expand the current Mac Isle club and run it. And that's just not cool. That's a no-go for this, for the curling club people.
Yeah, they want to run it.
They think that renovation was poorly done. They think that look where the changing rooms and the bar is not. It's BS.
It's sterile. Compared to Kamloops, it's a sterile place, even though it's a newer place. It's sterile.
It's industrial and it's hollow and it's not a club, and that's a no-go for them. So there's a lot. It's so early. It's just all talk right now. But that's kind of the stuff that's breaking right now. I think let's move on. Let's move on to the main event, Ward Stamer. Let's get right into it here. You saw the show last week. What were your thoughts when you saw the show?
Well, I thought there was a little bit of bus chucking, but fair enough. I sent a text to Jessica just before we were flying out, and I thought it would have been nice to put a little bit more into the article about what the good things the TNRD was doing, and not just all the bad things. But fair enough. I had a good chat with Chris when I finally got the voice message almost 3 days later down here in Mexico. It took me 15 minutes just to get on this Zoom meeting, believe it or not.
Really? Okay.
And so having said that, I think we had a pretty good discussion, and I'm always available to have a chat.
Yeah, sometimes in media, these things end up being productive, right? You have a blow up and you move on and your relations maybe grow. So how do you feel about how it all kind of ended up, Chris?
Well, I mean, it's good that Ward called me. It's good that we talked. I mean, I did call him. I didn't know you were en route to Mexico. And when you sent the text to Jessica on Saturday night, she was all pissed. Oh, she's very feisty, right? So she texted me, and I'm like, it's 10 o'clock on a Saturday night now. I'm getting all amped up because then we're all pissed off in the weekend. So, and then the Super Bowl is the next day, and I missed the spread by half a point, so I'm more pissed off. And then I called you, but it's good because we talked it out. Now, Ward, have you called Jessica yet?
No, I haven't, and I should.
Yes.
Again, I certainly will. Again, it was a text. It wasn't. I don't like doing tweets. I don't like doing the social media thing. I think that it's better to have a conversation just like we're having right now, guys.
Absolutely.
And if there was any hard feelings, I didn't think I really stepped out of line, other than I didn't believe that I had said that other directors were disgruntled.
But you did say that.
You said that yes, I did.
Yes.
So that's fine.
And you're not going to remember everything. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
No, and we had a pretty long discussion with Jessica and I, and she was doing some significant digging, and she was trying to get me to say things that I didn't necessarily wanted to say or believe that I even had a position to say. And she was a little edgy on that, but I've been around a long time, so I get it. I can handle myself. It's a lot of directors, they can't.
Yeah.
And they would just rather say no comment.
Yeah.
I'd rather be truthful about what's going on and do the best I can for everyone that's concerned.
What is this time like in general for the directors?
I think the biggest thing, guys, is that, when you go into a room and you're looking at some fairly sensitive documents, and there's a lot of legal implications to that kind of stuff, when they say it's supposed to be confidential, it's supposed to stay confidential. And when somebody decides that, no, they don't believe that it should be confidential, or they don't like what somebody else is doing, and I've mentioned in the past that this is a democracy. I don't always get my way. You don't always get your way. But at the end of the day, it's a democracy. And you just have to live with it. And if you want to, when you're going for re-election, and you go, well, no, I voted for this or I voted for that, fair enough. But at the end of the day, whatever the decision is, that's the decision. And unfortunately, we've got a couple of directors that have been continually leaking stuff to the media. And it doesn't look good for the organization. It doesn't look good for the directorship, and it's not good for our constituents and our residents in the Valley, because then it doesn't give them the sense of trust that we need to be able to show to them that we're acting responsible.
Well, but Chris, your point with that, though, is that shouldn't we care more about what's in the documents?
And how I got that letter, we don't know. And it may or may not have been from the board. We don't know that. I can't say that. We don't know that. So, but no, and there's two things here. One, yeah, it's a closed meeting, and legally you're bound not to talk about that. However, I would argue that what's in the letter, and that the letter we're talking about, is much more important to talk about that than whether it was leaked or whatever. Because had we not received that letter, no one would have known about that letter, which is a pretty significant development in the whole spending scandal story. And of course it changes today because now, of course, Ken Gillis said that he told the board what was in that letter, whereas before no one knew about the letter. So it's just it's a confusion. But no, I think it's more important to talk about what was in the letter because it relates to everything else going back all the way to when Sue Gill was sent off with the severance package. But anyway, that's how I feel. Yeah.
If I can add something, guys, and this is what I mentioned to Chris when we have a conversation there last week, is that it's not what you know, it's what you can prove. Mm-hmm. And this wasn't the only allegation that came to light after Mr. Gill was had left the building. Elvis had left the building. Yep. And unfortunately, we had heard other rumors, things that had occurred just after we got in there in our first term, and it was all unsubstantiated. Yep. And we didn't have a firm whistleblower policy in place, and there weren't safeguards so that if it was me and I was concerned for my job or my spouse's job, I don't really know what kind of protection I would have had then. I believe we have the protection now, but we didn't have the protection then with Mr. Gill.
And that's why.
As you know, I was never a fan of Mr. Gill. I'm not saying this after the fact. It's a reality of some of the things that happened in the past. But having said that, I disagree when some directors say that would have made a difference in how they voted on the severance package, because to me it wasn't what was actually in the letter, because it wouldn't have made a difference to me on what occurred personally. Well, you guys the problem is, and that's not like, I'm not suggesting that how I voted. That's not what I'm suggesting, because I'm not saying that. Because you can't do that. You can't describe what's happened in closed meetings. And unfortunately, the chair made that distinction a week ago, and that's unfortunate, but I think it was more of a slip of the tongue than what he really wanted to say. And I understand that there was another conversation you had with Chair Gillis, but I don't know what that was about. I haven't heard anything.
We talked about this a week ago when you called me, and the salient point is that when and we know about the allegations against Sue Gill that are not financial related. We've interviewed tons of people. We have stories we can't run yet because they're not proven yet, and deal with personnel matters. But I think the point that we both agree on, I think we agreed on this a week ago, is if this information came up about 2 weeks before the board agreed to send him off with $500,000 retirement in the legal document, the simple thing to me would be, we got this new information has come to light, and we should look into this. You said it's not proven. Well, let's see if it's proven. Put him on paid leave. Could have saved a lot of money and headaches down the road had you looked into that. What we can understand, and I think a lot of the taxpayers can understand, is Gillis gets this letter. He says now he shared the contents, if not the letter, with the board. You knew there's all these allegations against Sue Gill. Why not just, instead of voting on a severance package, why not look into those allegations, put on paid leave to find out what's behind those allegations? That's what we're all confused about. But anyway, that's I think we talked about that.
The reason I'm bringing that up, Chris, is because it's not that easy. Because again, it's not what you know, it's what you can prove. And if the board is as porous as we're led to believe it was porous, there's no way that you could have kept confidentiality. There's no way that you could have protected the employer the way that you should be, because we didn't have the policies in place.
Not until September that year. Yeah.
The other thing is that I know 500,000 or whatever that number is a significant amount of money, but you got to remember that a lot of that was already owed regardless to Mr. Gill, because it was vacation time and
less than half. But
okay.
Yet more than half would still.
Okay.
And how many retirements require a legal document saying I'm retiring? Most retirements, you have a cake in the lunchroom and you send them off. You don't need a lawyer's thing to say it's a retirement. We all know that. Anyway.
Well, no, but you're also being misled a little bit, in as much as that you're making an assumption on what somebody may or may not recommend. I can't tell you what was recommended to us.
Well, we know Harrison Company, the law firm, recommended this from Vancouver. We know that. I'm just saying, from my perspective, as a lowly journalist, I've never known anyone to retire needing a legal agreement to retire. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I can tell you right now that there is. And I'm not suggesting.
Well, of course there is. We paid $500,000 for it. That's why. So there you go. Anyway, we'll agree to disagree on that point. So,
well, one thing is, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong here, is there a group of directors that have decided to not talk to Jessica Wallace anymore?
I don't know. I quite frankly, I don't know. I can only speak for myself. I think that, again, some of the directors are a little bit uncomfortable because we all know that just because you say something off the record may or may not be off the record. And unfortunately, people can say things that can lead to something else, and then they regret that they said it in the first place. So I'm not entirely sure. I don't think there's a group that say they won't necessarily talk to a media person. But again, we're talking about a bunch of stuff where we are not allowed to speak to it. Because as soon as we do, we open up Pandora's box with a bunch of other legal implications, and the fact it could cost us as taxpayers more money. That's why we have to try to keep a lid on some of this until it comes out in the proper timeline. Just to try to get ahead of it can cost us all a whole bunch of extra money just because somebody wants to scoop on a story.
Right.
And that's what we're talking about.
But it's not just
Okay?
about it's not just scoop on the story. It's about what the taxpayers and the residents deserve to know. In this particular case, we found out about the letter not through any kind of nefarious means. It was a director bringing it up in a public meeting about shredding it, and then Jessica, to her credit, she looked into that because
that isn't what she was alluding to.
Well,
you missed that on your last show.
It doesn't matter.
What it was that. No, but
that's how we found the letter. Had Sally Watson never made that comment in public meeting, regardless of what it's about, this letter would never ever come up ever, because Jessica had her ears on and she was listening carefully.
She hasn't publised anything that was off the record. I mean, if that's
never,
what was being insinuated.
never off the record.
I'm not suggesting she did. I'm just also going to suggest what we chatted about last week was that if I was the chair, what I would have done differently is I would have brought it to legal.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Legal might have suggested, don't tell anybody. So if that was the case, that's exactly what I would have done, is I would have followed the legal information or recommendation is what I would have done. So if I wanted to criticize the chair, that's all I would have criticized, the fact that I would have asked legal and gone to the next steps. That's important. And the other thing is due process, because you're missing that too. We've always seemed to get tied up about the severance and everything else, and whether you would have done this and wouldn't have done that. A lot of this is in hindsight. A lot of this information didn't come out until after Mr. Gill was gone. I didn't know, you didn't know, nobody knew. So
well, apparently you guys did know. You guys did know, because Gillis said he told you what was in the letter when you guys voted on the severance package.
Well, I haven't heard that, so I'm not going to comment.
KamloopsThisWeek.com, or it's on right now. Go read the story. Top story.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I haven't read it.
Yeah.
But my point is, a lot of this stuff is coming out after the fact. I think we acted responsibly in as much as soon as we knew what was going on, we tried to make significant changes to policy, whether it was financial spending, auditing, whistleblower policies. All those things were done almost immediately before they even came out in a paper. So, and I made sure that Jessica and I agreed on that, as we did it before it came out. And the second thing is that when we looked at the choices between whether we do an audit report or not, we decided we had to do that. We had a responsibility to the taxpayers to do it, and we did it. And a lot of the shortcomings that were found have already been implemented, and the rest are going to be addressed as quickly as they can be. So I think we did everything we possibly could, knowing that over a third of the board, including myself, were brand new directors. We weren't even involved in the process in the first place.
How much healing do you think has to be done with the TNRD and the community?
Well, you know what? I think that once all the cards are on the table and we understand exactly what happened, I think we'll be able to move on from this, Chris. And I think also what will occur is that there will be a changing in October. I mean, you'll probably have new directors from the city of Kamloops. You'll have new councillors. You'll have possibly new EA directors. You may have different changes in the municipal end of things. So the dynamics of the board will change, and I think that it'll get to the better. I think this board is actually running better than probably most of the boards have in the past. And you remember, the TNRD has grown substantially in the last 10 to 12 years. And I'm thinking that, right now, from a personal perspective, we've got a really good CAO, Scott Hillebrand. I respect the staff members that he have. We've got staff that have retired in the last 6 to 12 months. I mean, Mr. Story is retired. Mr. Devlin is going to be retiring. Our film commissioner, Vicki Weller, is retiring. So I think there's a pretty good succession plan in place to be able to continue on with the programs. I haven't decided whether I'm going to run again, whether I want to put, another 4 years into this. And I'm sure that all the other directors are thinking the same thing.
Okay, anything else you wanted to add before we let you go?
Just the one good positive down here is Corona down here is still made in Mexico. So it's significantly better than back home.
It is.
Okay, bring some of that back and
bring me a Modelo.
Have
like
some
that.
cervezas.
Yes. All right, thanks, Ward.
Adios, amigos. Okay. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Chris, you on your phone, or are you going to wrap the show with us here? Oh, looks like Ward Stamer has sent a text to Jessica.
Yes. So I think everything should be fine now.
Look at that.
Absolutely.
Cervezas.
See, even in Mexico, he's working.
This show has been, it's been tough, but we've come to the end, to the finish line. Do you want to get us over the finish line with your final thoughts?
Just final thoughts is, it's a political show in all respects. Even the curling it's a political decision coming up. So it's good to talk about some meaty political stuff. And you know what I loved about this show, as shitty as the beginning was, we did not mention once the pandemic.
The pandemic, yeah.
That's good.
And actually, the other day, I thought this to myself, and I mentioned it on CBC Radio. After that Blazers win on Family Day, I was walking back out to my car, and I felt, whoa, like this almost feels like pre-pandemic times. Yeah. People were happy. Yep. There was more than 4,000 people at the game.
Yep.
Outside of the masks, it just had a regular life vibe again. I thought, man, there's a freedom about this.
I noticed that too. I was out last night. It was normal times.
And that's got to be a good thing for Herman, because people's wallets are going to open up and they're going to go down to New Leaf Produce Market and buy Strauss products and get their hearts in good shape.
Yes.
And they're going to go to McDonald's and start piling back coffees. You had way too many coffees and too many beers last night, for sure, because you had a tough show today. There's no question about that.
I carried the show today.
So did Mike. Tough show for everybody.
Mike had a really tough show.
Yeah. Bonnie, great show for Bonnie.
Great show for Bonnie.
For Scott Finley and the Grand Ones, for Chris, for Mike. We love you, Mike. You do a great job. I'm Marty Hastings, and this has been Kamloops Last Week. We'll see you last week.
Last week.